welcome back to another episode of Tim's Allotment Garden. Okay then, so next on the list is Don Padro Planta. Now these are some seeds that I saved last year. To be honest with you, I've not seen these for sale in the UK, possibly under a different name, but it basically just means Mr. Peter's plant. And these are some seeds that I saved last year. I'll just quickly show you. They're quite large seeds. The seeds kind of look like that, like little sort of coffee pots. And these these are perennial plant, very much like dahlias. And basically what you need to do is bring them in the winter because they're not hardy enough to survive UK weather during the winter. So what you need to do is kind of grow them very much like dahlias. So put them out in the summer months, put them out in kind of spring, late springtime, and then they will produce a plant which is probably around 3 or 4 foot high. They're quite bushy. You tend to get like the first year you just get like a normal sort of root plant, and then obviously it's a herbaceous perennial, so it'll sort of die down to the ground, so you just get the like the corm, if you like, at the bottom, and then that's the part that you overwinter, and then come next spring that'll start to shoot again. Put it in some compost, and then it'll grow up from there. And they are really nice plants. The flowers are kind of about that sort of size, like a sort of flute shape. And they range in colours from sort of dark pinks mainly to sort of reds. I've also seen yellows and some sort of creamy coloured ones as well. But they're quite a nice plant. As I say, they're the seeds there. And what I'm going to be doing is putting one seed in each of these little units on here. I'm only going to put one seed in each because I think these are pretty good germinating. And I'm planting the seed about sort of ½ an inch to an inch down in the compost. There's more than enough plants here for me. Okay, just one more seed required. I'll say if you're sort of less sure, you could possibly put a couple of seeds in each one. But you know, because the seeds have got quite a hard sort of shell to them, these will most certainly save over the winter, so I can save the till next year just in case I lose them all. But as I say, they are a perennial, so as soon as you've got them, as long as you look after them, put them in the greenhouse or the shed over winter, and stop them getting sort of frost damage, they should survive for years. Right, so I've just put about ½ an inch or so of compost down, just firming them down. I'll give those a bit of water, obviously because they're quite a hard seed. They're going to need you know, a really good watering to start them off, just to soften the shell of the seed. Keep the rest of the seeds dry, so they'll keep for a number of years, I think, 2 or 3 years at least. But as I say, if you want to look it up, it's called Don Padro Planta, like that. And they're a nice bush to keep. Obviously, the first year you only get like a plant about sort of a foot or so tall, but you will get flowers on it. The second year it really comes into its own. And sort of, you know, you'll then get sort of 3 or 4 foot high plant, quite bushy. Feed it well, and you know, and it'll reward you with the flowers, obviously. But that's Don Padro Planta. Okay, another plant that we collected the seed from last year are these. Now these are the Calendula seeds, and as you can see, they're quite sort of curly sort of seeds. Now, to be honest with you, calendulas, you can just set the seed straight onto the ground. So get a piece of ground, you know, sort of well dug over, make sure all the weeds are out, and then just sprinkle the seed onto the surface, and then just rake it over just to make sure that they're slightly covered, and these will grow away. These are literally like sort of weeds. These will grow away quite easily. But what I want to do is grow some in these little these little modules, so that when I'm planting them out in the flower borders in the garden, I can actually sort of choose where the plants are going as opposed to scattering the seed. Now, if you at the beginning of all the videos, you'll see these. I always put a row of them on the front of the allotment, between the allotment and the sort of the lane. And all I do is basically just cast the seed on the ground at the beginning of every year, and then they grow away quite nicely. They do self-set as well, so as soon as you've got them, you know, you will find that you know, they're there for good, really. They are really nice flowers. Obviously they attract the wildlife, the bees and that like them, so that's, you know, it's always a bonus. But if you want to plant them into trays like this is the best way of sort of growing the little plantlets, and then you'll be able to plant them out into the garden as and where you need them. Again, all I've done is just put some clover compost in there. Again, what you want to do is make a hole in the middle. You're planting the seeds around sort of, I don't know, about 1 centimetre deep or so. It's not really critical, to be honest with you. These plants will grow pretty much whichever way you plant them, really. I think if you plant them 2 inches down, I think they'll still grow. But the seeds are quite unusual. They're kind of, that's the seed there. As you can see, it's quite a unusual little seed. All I'm going to do is put 2 of these seeds in each one of these little modules, and then these will grow quite quickly. They're already growing outside, in fact. If you look at the front of the allotment, I've actually dug up quite a few whilst I've been digging the patch over. But I know I'm going to set some more anyway, so I wasn't too bothered about them. So I effectively fetch them out like weeds, to be honest. But as I say, just put a sort of 2 or 3 in each of these little tubs, and then you just want to cover them with, as I say, about 1 centimetre is probably ideal of compost. And then these will grow away quite happily. You could even put these outside, to be honest with you. These will germinate outside, but because of the rain, I'm going to keep them inside because you don't want them to be really wet. And the rest of these seeds, I'll just scatter these on the ground outside, at the front of the allotment. As I say, all you need to do is put a few in. I say they're really easy to grow. These are quite an investment. If you want sort of annual flowers that are quite pretty, that come every year, these will self-set, and you'll find that you end up with them everywhere. They're part of the daisy family, which are well known for sort of self-setting themselves everywhere. I'm just making sure I've got plenty of seeds in each one. Right, there's sort of 2, 3, 4 seeds in each one. Right, so what you need to do now is just cover them over with a bit more compost. Give these a good watering, and then these will be up in next to no time. Most certainly within a week I'd expect to see some germination here. And then, as I say, as soon as they get to kind of 4 inches or so high, you'll be able to put them outside, and you can sort of select exactly where you want to put them. Now they come in all sorts of shapes and colours. You get singles, doubles, oranges, whites, reds, a mixture of those. You also get sort of peachy coloured ones as well. I've got a variety in here. There's all sorts of different colours in here because I've put in various seed packets over the years. But so they're the calendulas. As I say, I'll show these in a couple of weeks' time when they come up. But that's all you need to be doing for now. You don't need to be overly fussy with these. As I say, they'll germinate pretty much whatever you do. They are a really nice sort of looking flower. Very easy to grow, so good for children as well if they're starting off gardening. But that's calendulas for you. Okay then, so on to a perennial vegetable. Now there aren't many perennial vegetables in the garden, obviously most of them are annual, but one perennial is asparagus. Now these are the asparagus berries that we saved from last year, and if you get one of these berries, and just break it open, you'll see that inside you'll have about 3 or 4, possibly 5 little black seeds like that. Now those are the seeds that will grow into the asparagus plant. So what I suggest you do is, so we've got these little trays, and I'll just put these seeds on one side for a second. So something like that is just ideal size to start them off, which is about a 2-inch square tray. I'm putting it into a normal tray just to get a little bit of strength. Now, all you need now is some good compost. I'm using clover as I normally do. Now what you'll need to do is grow these plants on. Now I've got obviously an asparagus bed in the allotment that you've seen in the past. And what you need to do is to have some plants coming on. So if any of your sort of asparagus plants fail in the winter, if you get a particularly wet winter, what you'll find is you can get some plants that actually fail and they don't come through again the following year. So it's always best to have some plants on standby to sort of replace the ones that have failed. Now, asparagus plants, typically, if you're growing them from seed like this, they will take sort of 2 or 3 years before they come to any kind of sort of size where you can actually plant them out. So what you need to do is grow them like this, and then at the end of this year, what you do is you pop them up. I'm putting 3 or 4 seeds in each one of these little trays. Again, I've put my fingers in the middle to make the seeds go in the middle of the tray, or the little section if you like. At the end of the year, what you'll need to do is to pop these on, or even earlier in the year actually, if they're growing quite large. These will start them off. You should get some like little wispy sort of grass sort of things that'll grow about sort of 4 or 5 inches high this year. And then what you do is you pot them out into something that big, and then with some fresh compost, and then they'll sort of grow on next year, and then go onto a bigger pot, something like a 6-7 inch pot, and then they'll be basically ready to go out then. But it takes around 3 or 4 years to get them to the point where you can start to harvest the spears at the beginning of the year. So this is like the first stage if you like. So I've got some that I grew last year, I've also got some that I grew the year before, and they're sort of coming on now. If you don't need them, obviously they're always nice to give away to people, you know, who are establishing an asparagus bed, because these are reasonably expensive to sort of buy. If you get them over the internet or at a garden centre, you know, you can potentially spend £4 or £5 per plant. So doing it this way, you know, I've collected these berries for nothing off the plant, and you know, you're getting something for nothing really. It's all it takes is just time, just to put the seeds in now, and then all you need to do is just keep them moist. Asparagus is naturally a beech plant. It originates off of beech, so they like sort of dry, well drained soil. So if your soil's quite sort of damp, what you need to do is work some sort of gravel or sand into it to improve the drainage. But apart from that, they will grow pretty much anywhere. It's quite, because it's a beech plant, asparagus is also quite tolerant to salt. So you know, I know people, I've not done it myself, but I know people who put rock salt around their you know, the salt that you get from the road around their asparagus plant, and what that does is it suppresses the weeds, but obviously the asparagus plant is quite immune to it, so it will grow. But I wouldn't put some on every year, to be honest with you. I'll just do it every like once every few years. I wouldn't put it every year, because I think it has got a tolerance to it, but most plants can be poisoned by salt, so I wouldn't try your arm too much with this. But anyway, asparagus, as I say, is a perennial plant, and there aren't many perennial vegetables. Obviously most vegetables are annuals. Obviously the other sort of perennials are rhubarb is obviously a perennial vegetable, and then we've got things like mashua, a colour, which is sort of South American styled plants. I've got mashua in the allotment, as you know, but I really only grow asparagus and rhubarb as perennial vegetables. Obviously they're herbaceous as well, so during the winter the tops, or the you know, the top part of the plant will die down to the ground, leaving only the root system in the ground, and then over winter they'll be literally just, you know, just the root. So basically what you're developing with these plants is the actual root system. Right, so I've got 3 or 4 seeds in each one now, so all you need to do is basically just cover the seeds lightly. You don't need too much, just the soil or the compost that's around will be more than enough, just to cover them like that. As I say, you don't need to, you just need to keep these moist. You don't need to keep them sort of wet. And as I say, keep them in a well drained area. When you pot them up, what you can do is put a bit of a bit of sand in with the compost, just to improve the drainage, or a bit of fine gravel. But that's the asparagus. Now I'll basically leave these in the greenhouse now. I'll give them a bit of water, and I'll leave these in the greenhouse probably till about June time, till they've germinated and started to grow. Then these will sit outside in this tray till they've got to, sort of reasonable size. Then you want to pot them up into something this big. Then, as I say, next year or the year after, you want to put them into a bigger pot, progressively going through the sizes of pots till you get to something about 6 inches big. There's no reason why you can't plant these out in the ground. They will survive outside in the ground, but for best results I would suggest you keep them in pots, overwinter them in the greenhouse, and then put them out when they're good established. And what you should get is a root system which is kind of at least like that in diameter, with the roots kind of coming out the bottom. That's when you know it's going to survive most certainly the winter. And when you plant them outside, make sure that the ground that you're planting them into is fertile and also well draining, and basically you can't go wrong. So that's the asparagus for now. I'll show you in a few weeks time when it starts to come up. Okay, then onto the onions. Now I'm going to put some more onions in. Now these onions are from Wilco's, and these are Alistair Craig. I've grown these from sets before in the past, but I've never grown them from seed. So I'm just going to put some more seed in. Now the one thing I didn't explain last time when I was putting the Bedfordshire Champion onions in is the benefits from growing onions from seed. Obviously all the onion family are sort of biannual, so they'll grow for 2 years and run to seed. If you put sets in, they've already had 1 year, so there's a high chance that they will run to seed if you don't sort of keep them well watered and the weather's not too hot. But obviously you can't control that all the time. So like last year I had quite a few that ran to seed because the weather was so warm. So by growing them from seeds, you reduce the risk of the plants running to seed on you, and then you're more likely to get a nice full onion that hasn't run to seed. Now all you need to do in each of these is obviously do what I've just done. Put your finger in like that, make a little indentation in the middle. The reason you're doing that is to make sure that the seeds roll to the middle of the cell, if you like. Now what I'm going to do is put 2 seeds in each one of these, and the seeds are going to be probably about 5mm down by the time I put some more compost on the top. You only need to put 2 seeds in each one. If you put 3 in, it doesn't really matter. And what you're going to do is leave them in here for about 3 weeks, and then take out the weaker one of the 2 seedlings in there, so leaving you with the strongest one. The way to do that is just to get a small pair of scissors and cut off the weaker one. Don't try and pull the root out because you'll disturb the roots. And then you'll be able to pull them out, take the plugs out of here, obviously with the compost and everything, and then plant them straight into the ground, and then they'll grow away quite nicely. And because you've got like a little clump of highly fertile sort of compost around the roots, if you like, that will also give them a good start in the garden. One thing you can do as well with sets, if you are going to grow your onion from sets, is actually plant your sets into these little modules as well, because what that'll do is it'll start them off in the greenhouse in a warm environment. It'll give the onions a a good boost to start with, which will basically result in you getting a larger onion. Obviously the onions will start to go over according to the weather, so the earlier you can get them in, the longer growing season they'll have, and therefore the larger onion you'll have. So if you want to grow nice big onions, the earlier you get them in the better, and they are reasonably resistant against things like frost and stuff like that, so there's no reason why you can't get them in as soon as. Right, so what I'm going to do now is just put a little sprinkling of compost over the top. As I say, you don't need to put too much in. All you need to do is just cover the seeds basically to get them started. So I'm going to just sprinkle some fine compost over like that, and then just push them down with a couple of fingers like that to make sure that the compost is in contact with the seed. give them a good watering, and then set them aside in the greenhouse, and they'll come up in next to no time. So in a couple of weeks' time, like these that we sowed a couple of weeks ago, that's where I'm expecting to see something about 1 inch high, like a piece of grass almost, and then they'll grow up. As soon as they get to kind of sort of 5-6 inches high, then you can take out the weaker one of the two, and then plant these little plugs into the ground, and away you go. So that's onions for you, and I'll show you these in a couple of weeks' time as soon as they're all up and ready to go. Okay, some more seeds that we saved from last year. Now these are the multi-headed sunflowers. I'm growing 3 different types of sunflowers this year. These are the ones that grow about 4 or 5 foot high, and the sort of they have sort of 4 or 5 different flowers on them going up the stalk. That's what the seeds look like. All sunflower seeds look pretty much the same. And I'm going to be planting these just like the others with the pointy bit down. I'm putting two seeds in each one, and what I'll be doing is the weaker one of the two, I'll cut that off with a pair of scissors, leave the roots in, don't bother you know, trying to pull it out, because you can damage the roots of the one that you're trying to keep. And I'm planting these about 2 inches down. The compost is in these pots. I say these are the sort of 4-inch square pots. I find these stack quite easily. And as I said to you with the other ones, what you need to be doing is feeding the seed, make sure there is a kernel inside, because what you can get is somewhere the kernel doesn't form properly. Put 2 or 3 seeds in each one. As I say, pick out the strongest one. If you've bought the seed, then obviously just put 1 in per pot. I'll just quickly show you the ones that I planted the other day, so you can sort of see the germination rate. Now those are the ones that I actually bought, which are the pom-pom type sunflowers, and they've all come through, all but one. And so what I might do is, I did save a few seeds back, so what I'll do is I'll give it another couple of days. If nothing appears, I'll just bob another couple of seeds in that one that's missing. As I say, I'm just putting 2 or 3 seeds in each one of these. It's just literally as quick as this. You don't need to be too fussy with sunflowers, they will grow quite well. Right, so that's all I need. As I say, off one flower, you know, I've basically filled a whole envelope. Now these seeds will keep, so don't throw these away. These will keep for a couple of years. As long as you keep them sort of dry and not too warm, they will sort of keep in there quite well. All you need to do is just sort of knock the compost over them like that, and then just to make sure that the compost is actually in contact with the seed. Obviously I push them in anyway, just to make sure the compost is in. Get another sort of pile of pots, and then just go along and just push gently down like that. And what that'll do is it'll compress the compost and make sure that the seed's actually in contact with the you know, the compost, so when you water them you have a little gap at the top for the water to sit, and also the compost is in contact with the seed. What you can do is soak the seed. I don't really feel that you need to, but they're the sunflowers. Obviously put a label to make sure that you know what they are. Now these are the ones that I sowed last week. As you can see, they're already up, so I'll put one in each one. And that's a little weed there. As you can see, that one there, the true leaves are coming. So you get these first 2 leaves, which are the seed leaves, and then right in the middle there you'll see the true leaf starting to come. Just the one hasn't come there, but as I say, I'll give that a couple of days. I can't see any evidence of anything growing, so I'll just put another seed in there, then we'll be able to sort of go from there. But that's what they'll look like within a week. They do germinate reasonably quickly, sunflowers do, and then as soon as they're up and ready, just leave them in these pots till they get to about anywhere between 9 inches and a foot tall, so sort of 20 centimetres to 30 centimetres high, and then just plant them out into the ground wherever you want them. These will grow, as I say, about 5 foot. The giant ones that I planted last week, they grow to about sort of 8 foot high, and the pom-pom ones grow to about 3 or 4 foot high. So dependent on the area that you know that you want to put some flowers in, do do pick the right variety for you. As I say, these are fantastic for insects, things like bees, butterflies and everything. They love sunflowers. And also in the autumn you've also got the seeds that you can leave out for the birds as well, so they're good for the birds. So they're an all-round good plant for nature. So if you've got a spare bit of ground either at the front of a border, obviously some shorter ones, right at the back of the border if you've got some more area, you can put these sort of taller 8 foot or sort of 6 foot high ones. And as I say, they're really good. So if I've got some room, I do strongly recommend you grow some sunflowers, and I'll show you these in a couple of weeks' time as soon as they're done. Okay, so just a quick catch up around the greenhouse. It's the 21st of March today, so just to let you know how things are going on. So these are the white hollyhocks. You'll see the black ones there in the other greenhouse, but they're just about starting to come up now. As you can see, these coming through. Those are the asparagus. They haven't come up yet, but they've only been in a few days. They're the first lot of sunflowers. As you can see, they're doing quite well. This is the broccoli, first batch of broccoli, and they're starting to come up. I've got a little bit of whiting on the top there. I'm not sure if they've got scorched at all, but you know, from the cold at night. But they seem to be doing okay. Strawberries, coriander, things like that haven't come up yet. Neither is the basil or the lobelia, or the tomatoes yet. I've not got any tomatoes come up yet. But the onions, the Bedfordshire Champion, as you can see, these are doing well. If you can see the little plants there, about 1 inch or so high now. So they've all sort of come up. There's only 2 that I can see here that are missing. Apart from that, the rest of them have come up. So they're the onions. That's the first greenhouse. And in the second greenhouse we've got the rest of the seeds. So the sunflowers there only went in the other day, so they're not quite ready yet, or coming up. These are the sweet peas. You can see they're just about starting to come through the ground, top of the ground. That's the black hollyhocks. You can see there much more. There's much more of them sort of come through. That's the kale. So that's grown really well. So the brassicas are doing really well. These are the asters. Now, insects like fleas and bees and butterflies really love asters, so this is a really good one for the allotment. Apart from the fact they look really nice, you know, they really do attract the bees and that. And then we've got the other set of onions there, the Alistair Craig, which aren't obviously through yet. And then they're the giant sunflowers, again, not been in the ground enough yet for long enough to come through. So that's what the seeds are looking like at the moment. So, I hope this episode was of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you've got below, and I'll always get back to you, and I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.